Early on the morning of December 4th, 2024, UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson was walking toward a Midtown Manhattan hotel for an investor conference. He never made it inside. A masked shooter approached from behind and killed him in a targeted ambush on the sidewalk. The shooter escaped on an e-bike, leaving behind a specific set of clues. Investigators found 3 spent 9mm shell casings at the scene, and etched into the brass were 3 words: delay, deny, depose. Critics of the American healthcare industry use those exact terms to describe the strategies insurance companies employ to avoid paying out medical claims and maximize profits. By carving his motives into the ammunition, the killer turned the crime scene into a platform for his ideology. This was a calculated execution designed to force a national conversation on his terms. The shooting launched a 5-day multi-state manhunt. It ended hundreds of miles away in Altoona, Pennsylvania, after a McDonald's employee recognized a customer from surveillance photos released by the NYPD. The suspect was 26-year-old Luigi Mangione. He was an Ivy League graduate and the valedictorian of an elite Maryland preparatory school, raised in a prominent family with ties to real estate and country clubs. Mangione had no prior criminal record and a background that suggested a future of professional success. He didn't fit the profile of a typical violent extremist. The central mystery of the case is how a young man with every available resource and privilege rationalized a meticulously planned assassination. Police reconstructed the killer's movements through a dense network of surveillance cameras. They discovered he had arrived in New York 10 days before the shooting, traveling by bus and staying in a hostel under a false name. In a trash can near a Starbucks, investigators found a discarded water bottle and a Kind Bar wrapper. These yielded a direct match for his prints, placing him just blocks from the hotel minutes before the murder. The suspect allegedly used a 3D printed ghost gun equipped with a homemade silencer. By choosing a weapon without a serial number, he attempted to bypass the traditional methods law enforcement uses to trace firearms. When police arrested Mangione at the McDonald's, they found a trove of evidence inside his backpack: a passport, $10,000 in cash, and a red notebook containing handwritten plans for the attack. The physical evidence proved the murder was premeditated, but it left the deeper psychological question of his motivation unanswered. Years before the shooting, Mangione began suffering from chronic, debilitating back pain caused by a slipped vertebra. Even after a spinal fusion surgery in 2023, he complained of brain fog, exhaustion, and a declining quality of life. Forensic experts believe this physical suffering intersected with a sense of elite entitlement. In his mind, his pain wasn't just a medical condition, it was a grievance that required a target. In a handwritten manifesto found at his arrest, Mangione described the American healthcare system as parasitic. He took personal responsibility for the killing, writing that he felt his actions were justified. His writings also revealed an admiration for the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. Mangione reviewed Kaczynski's work online, arguing that his ideas about modern society were prescient and that violence could be a legitimate political tool. Psychologists suggest this wasn't the result of a psychotic break. Instead, Mangione used his intelligence to reason his way into an extreme ideology, using his physical pain to rationalize the murder of a stranger. Mangione has been indicted on 11 charges in New York, including second-degree murder and criminal possession of a weapon. He faces separate federal charges for stalking and the use of a silencer. His legal team is fighting to suppress the evidence found at his arrest. They argue the warrantless search of his backpack in Pennsylvania was unconstitutional. If the defense succeeds, the prosecution could lose its ability to use the murder weapon and manifesto during trial. Without that physical evidence, the government's ability to prove his specific motive and link him to the weapon used in Manhattan would be significantly weakened. While the legal case proceeds, the shooting has triggered a polarizing reaction online. Some have attempted to frame Mangione as a folk hero, using his actions to vent their own frustrations with the insurance industry. That reaction ignores the daily reality for millions of Americans who struggle with the same flawed healthcare system without resorting to violence. Forensic experts see a pattern of extreme self-righteousness in Mangione's history. To them, he didn't act out of systemic necessity, but out of a rigid conviction that his personal perspective justified taking a life. Ultimately, the case of Luigi Mangione shows what happens when individual grievance is allowed to masquerade as justice. It is a choice of violence that attacks the very society it claims to be trying to save.